Welcome. Let's talk about one of the most fundamental services in all of AWS, S3. Today, we're going to crack it open and show you how to transform it from what can feel like a black box into something you can see with crystal clarity, all by using a simple four-layer strategy.
For a lot of us, S3 is kind of this dump and forget service. We put files in, we get files out. But what's really going on in there? Who's accessing your data? Are you seeing a bunch of errors you don't even know about? Is everything actually secure? Without a solid monitoring plan, you're pretty much flying blind.
So where do we even begin? Well, before you even think about touching a tool, AWS says to start with a plan. And really, it just boils down to these four questions. Answering these first is so important because it forces you to define what success even looks like. It's about collecting the right data, not just all the data.
Okay, so to help us make sense of it all, we're going to use this simple framework I call the 4 layers of visibility. Think of it this way. CloudWatch, that's your car's dashboard, giving you real-time info. S3 event notifications are like tripwires that go off when something happens. Then you've got CloudTrail and server logs. That's your detailed CCTV footage for when you need to investigate. And finally, S3 storage lens is like a satellite, giving you that high-level overview of everything. Let's dive into each one.
All right, first up is the real-time dashboard. Just like in your car, you need to know what's happening right now. This layer is all about getting that immediate feedback on the health and performance of your buckets. And the main tool for the job here is Amazon CloudWatch Alarms. It's actually beautifully simple. You just tell it, hey, watch this specific thing, like error counts. Then you give it a threshold, and if that number gets crossed, it sounds the alarm. It's your essential early warning system. Now, don't just see this as a boring list of metrics. These numbers tell a story. Sure, bucket size bytes and number of objects tell you about growth, which is cool, but the really juicy stuff is in 4xx errors and 5xx errors. A sudden spike in 4x errors, that could mean a broken application is hammering your bucket with bad requests. A spike in 5xx errors, that might point to a problem with S3 itself. Keeping an eye on these is absolutely crucial.
So watching a dashboard is great, but what if we could get our system to react for us, automatically? That brings us to our second layer, setting up the tripwires.
S3 event notifications are, for all intents and purposes, your digital tripwires. Instead of just sitting back and watching things happen, you can create these powerful rules that say, when the specific event happens, I want you to do this other thing immediately. This is where your monitoring goes from being passive to being proactive. And just look at how powerful this can be. For instance, anytime a new image gets uploaded, you could use that S3 object created event to instantly trigger a Lambda function to create thumbnails. Or, here's a big one, if an object gets deleted, you can use S3 object removed to fire off an immediate security alert. The potential for automation here is just immense. Okay, one quick but super important technical detail you gotta remember. These notifications are designed for at least once delivery. What that means is you are guaranteed to get the notification, but you might on rare occasions get a duplicate. It's a small trade-off for a super reliable system, but it means your code needs to be smart enough to handle that. Okay, so we've got our dashboard, we've got our tripwires. But what about when you need to play detective? When you need to go back in time and figure out exactly what happened? Well, for that, we need to roll the tape, the CCTV footage. Now, S3 gives us 2 main logging tools, and it's so important to know the difference. Think of a CloudTrail as your security audit log. It tracks API calls, who did what and when, and it's fast and guaranteed. Server access logs are more like traditional web server logs, great for analyzing traffic patterns, but they can take a few hours to show up. So here's the key takeaway. CloudTrail is for security and auditing. Server logs are for traffic analysis.
So you've got all this log data. What can you actually do with it? This is where the magic happens. You can use a service like Amazon Athena to run SQL queries directly on those log files. So this query you see here, it's like sending a detective into a warehouse full of files to find one specific piece of paper. It's sifting through maybe millions of records to find every single delete operation.
And the result you get back is pure gold for any investigation. In plain English, that one query tells you exactly who deleted an object, the IP address they came from, and the precise moment it happened. That kind of detail is what turns a security mystery into a closed case.
All right, we've covered real-time data, automated actions, and deep dive forensics. Now it's time to zoom all the way out. Let's get that high-level satellite view for the big picture insights across your entire organization. And this is where S3 Storage Lens shines. It's built to give you that single pane of glass to see what's happening across, dozens, maybe hundreds, or even thousands of accounts and buckets. It's all about usage, activity, and finding those sweet cost optimization opportunities. Imagine you open up your Storage Lens dashboard and you're just hit with this number, 80%. It's simple, it's stark, and it practically screams for an explanation. 80% of what? And there's your answer. Storage Lens can tell you, instantly, that 80% of your data isn't being protected with your company's required encryption keys. I mean, think about that. That's a critical, actionable security finding that would be an absolute nightmare to try and figure out manually. And it goes way beyond that. Storage Lens is basically a recommendation engine for your S3 usage. It'll point out those cold buckets nobody has touched in a year that are costing you money. It'll flag buckets that are missing key data protection features like versioning. It's really a strategic tool for everyone from engineers to management. So, we've gone through all 4 layers. The big question is, how do you put this all together into one solid strategy? How do you really become an expert at S3 monitoring? Well, it really is this simple. You start with your CloudWatch dashboard for those moment-to-moment health checks. You set up your event notification tripwires to automate responses to things you care about. You have your CloudTrail and server logs ready to go for when you need to do that detective work. And you use Storage Lens for those bigger strategic reviews. Every tool has its purpose, and together they give you complete visibility. So I'll just leave you with this one thought. Every single request, every upload, every error, it's all part of a story that your data is trying to tell you. By using this 4-layer approach, you finally have the tools you need to listen in. The only question left is, what are you going to discover?